Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Appraisal Buzzcast. We have a great episode for you. Let me bring in Hal Humphreys, our host, and let's get started. Hey, Hal.
Hi, Jim. How you doing this week?
I'm doing great. We have a great topic that I want to talk about. Our guest today is Heather Sullivan from Aloft. Hey, Heather, how are you?
Hello. I'm doing well, guys. Nice to see you both.
Good to see you.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to be talking about UAD and the upcoming session at Valuation Expo and everything that appraisers need to know about that before this change. So, Hal, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, I don't know that we're going to be able to get everything that appraisers need to know covered in the podcast. I'm not even sure we're going to be able to get it covered in a live conference setting, but we're certainly going to try. Heather, do us a favor. I've known you for quite some time, but some of the folks in the crowd may not know who you are. Tell us a little bit about your background, your history in the appraisal business.
Well, I don't know if we have time for all of that, and I don't want to bore everyone with the details, but I can say I wasn't born an appraiser, but it wasn't too long after that I became an appraiser. I've been appraising since college, and I've had the opportunity to take on numerous roles and responsibilities. Right now, I'm in the education and training space. I'm the head of development, learning and development for Aloft, and I focus on bringing new appraisers into the industry and helping existing appraisers hone their craft. It's really a passion of mine. So I've been doing that for a number of years now. I'm a AQB certified USPAP instructor and a contributing member to the ASB. So, say the least, I probably spend a lot of my time reading USPAP, which some might not think that is as fun as I do, but I sure do enjoy it.
You know, if you want to get a group of appraisers going, ask a USPAP question. It's just always a good way to get things going. You know, when people ask me how I got my start in the business, I usually start with something like, I was young, I needed the money. It's we've all got different paths for how we got here, but I do love the fact that you're in the education space and Aloft is doing really cool things. I like the company. And I'm tickled to have you here. And I'm really, really excited to dive in today about some of the UAD stuff. But before we get there, let's take a quick break and give a shout out to one of our sponsors.
Since 1978, LIA Administrators and Insurance Services has been offering E&O insurance to valuation professionals. LIA applies superior customer service, exceptional liability education from Peter Christensen, and unparalleled claim defense managed by Claudia Gaglioni. LIA offers errors and omissions, commercial bonds, general liability, cyber liability, and real estate agents and brokers E&O. Visit liability.com or call 800-334-0652.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm joined today by Heather Sullivan of Aloft. Aloft, sorry.
Aloft,
I pronounce it Aloft. I know other people say Aloft. Some people say Aloft. I think I heard you say Aloft. We're here today to talk about the UAD redesign. What are you the moderator of this redesign session?
Moderator. Yes.
Okay. But you also have an involvement and maybe a unique perspective in this new reporting process. Can you help us understand kind of what your involvement is and share some of your insights?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, being in the education and training space, my team is collaborating with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to build the training that appraisers and lenders will take that introduces everyone to this new reporting structure. It will spotlight all the new features and functionality and some of the expanded data sets that will be helping us to better explain and describe the properties that we're appraising. So I got a tremendous insight into kind of the behind the scenes and some of the thinking. I get to ask all the questions directly to the source. So it's been a really fun journey. And I have a little bit of insight. I can't speak to all of it. Obviously I'm learning as I go and not the expert, but it's a pretty fascinating process and something I think everybody's looking forward to.
Can you tell me what elements and features of the new reporting process you think appraisers might like most?
Oh yeah. It's funny because I've had multiple roles throughout the industry as, an appraiser out in the field, as a supervisor, trainee, also as a reviewer. And I think that there's a lot of wonderful aspects for all those different types of roles that you'll appreciate differently depending on what role you're in. From an appraiser, we've all written our reports, and you have to go back to the addendum and basically recap the data that's in the actual report so you can tell the whole story when you're explaining it and supporting it and describing it. And it creates a lot of extra work. And so with the new form structure, it's going to be like the sections are kind of all encompassing. So you'll, talk about a specific topic or feature or element of the property. There'll be a spot for you to add your commentary right there, the photos, exhibits, any maps. It's just going to make it, to me, I think it's going to make a lot less writing and a lot easier for the readers of the report or the reviewer to find exactly what they were looking for or hoping for in the appraisal report. So I think that's one of the, just the biggest step forward from where we are today. They've expanded the sales comparison grid. So now it's easier to kind of go element by element and describe the differences or, quickly identify the differences between the subject and the comparables. So you can add more features. If there's a feature that's not relevant to the properties, you won't see it in there. So it kind of just makes what's important very visible. So I really like that aspect of it. Being a USPAP instructor, it has some USPAP upgrades where some of that mandatory reporting is now in there. So there's just a lot of really well thought out additions to our existing way of producing appraisal reports.
So you're telling me gone are the days of like 1.5 lines to explain why something doesn't meet the highest and best use test?
I always think of that as a tweet. You know how you only have so many characters in a tweet, and it's like, trying to condense it down so it doesn't flow over, which we all know it's not the best approach.
I think I've made the joke a number of times. I teach a review class, and I've made the joke a number of times. Look, to even get the words physically possible, legally permissible, financially feasible, maximally productive in that line, you have to use like a 2-point font.
I tell you, don't even get me started on the highest and best use analysis.
Well, the thing I think is really exciting about this, what I'm hearing you say is in the different sections of the report, the UAD report, we're going to be able to add commentary and expand. So gone are the days of see addendum, which for reviewers is a nightmare because Heather, I guarantee you, when you were doing like residential appraisals on a full-time basis, you set your addendum up differently than I set mine up, differently than Jim Morrison set his up, differently than everybody does it their own way. And for reviewers, see addendum is like, oh no, now I've got to go look through this whole thing and see where they put it.
Yep. It'll help a lot with that aspect of it. I think everybody will enjoy it.
Good. What can appraisers expect as this new reporting process rolls out? Are they going to get trained? Are they going to have to switch softwares?
Oh, great questions. Yes, there'll be training. Obviously, I think I alluded to that earlier. What we're doing is we're building out a universal training for appraisers and another one for the lenders. And hopefully all the education providers will offer this training, so everybody gets the same training and experience. So, it'll be a smooth rollout. The software, as you can imagine, it's a new reporting structure, so the software will be changing, but your current and the major software providers will be developing this new reporting structure. So you will, while you'll need to take their training on how to use the new software, it won't be a transition to a new software provider.
Awesome. That's awesome. I love that. When you think about that 1004 URAR form, I remember my dad used to get his in the mail on cardstock, glue bound at the top, 2 pages with a bag of fishing worms attached to it. It has not changed substantially from those days. It's still basically the same document. Some things have been updated a couple of times, but this is long overdue.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, let's go ahead.
Oh no, I was just it definitely has evolved to something that I think appraisers have been needing and wanting for a really long time. And it has the potential of continuing to expand, now that the way they're building it in a more dynamic format. It won't limit us in the future like the current forms do.
Okay. Let's take a real quick break and give a shout out to one of our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
The Appraisal Institute recently launched its Instagram page, AI's latest presence on social media, joining Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and the Face Value podcast. Visit and follow AI's Instagram page for another way to access valuation news and association updates. www.instagram.com/appraisalinstitute.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzz. I've got Heather Sullivan from Aloft here with me. Heather is working on the education component to help us appraisers, AMCs, lending institutions, everybody involved in this world of real estate appraisal, how to deal with the rollout of the new UAD. Now, Heather, I know that the appraisal industry is how do I say this? We tend to get stuck in certain ways. And I've heard appraisers, talk about the new UAD unveiling with some trepidation and some fear. If an appraiser wants to learn more, are there any resources available to them now?
Yeah, there's actually some great resources already out there. Both of the enterprises' websites have a UAD page where it already contains sample scenarios, which I actually found really helpful because you see how it's going to look when it's delivered, and it kind of helps you understand the new structure and how things will be designed and what kind of information they'll be asking for the various property types. Because remember, this is getting rid of all the different form types. So there's not going to be a 1004 or a 1073 or a 2055. It's all those forms are gone. So it's more of a TurboTax way of you enter a piece of information, and based off of what type of information you entered, it might follow up with additional information blocks or segments type thing. So, there is this whole element of, it's a new process. So the training resources are going to be made available. There's a reference guide. There's, like I said, the sample scenarios will have training both for education provider, but then also for the lenders as well. So yeah, there'll be a lot of resources. And then, if you haven't already, register for the Valuation Expo conference that's coming up in August. And we're going to have some tremendous insight presented by Ken DeFeo and Sean Murphy. They'll be talking about all the work they've been doing, actually designing the new URAR and the expanded data set. So I would just recommend, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, we're going to push Val Expo. It is our conference, and we're excited to host it. But this year, Fannie Mae is going to be there unveiling the new UAD, and we're pretty excited about that. The session that you're moderating, what can we expect to learn from that session?
Well, I don't want to take spoil anybody's thunder, but I believe you'll get to see some of the new functionality and the reporting structure. I think they'll show you some of the way the decisioning engines are being designed so that it is more of a TurboTax type approach. They'll really be diving into the expanded data set and what that means and how appraisers will be able to provide, better, more detailed, pertinent information. So I think you'll find that there's a lot of great information that's going to be unveiled at the conference. And while I don't know, I'm speaking, from the outsider's perspective, I can imagine that's what they'll be talking about.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. You said something earlier that I thought was really interesting. You were talking about the dynamic fields in the right places. So if you're talking about the kitchen, there's room to expound and talk about the kitchen. If you're talking about the exterior of the house, there's room there where you can add comments and describe things in more detail. You said, I think it's going to be less writing, and I think I hadn't really thought about that very detailed, but I can totally see where being able to do it right there in the right spot where it makes sense is going to be so much easier than see addendum, go create an addendum, put it in, your reader, whoever they are, has to know exactly where you normally put things in the addendum. I think there's some really good things about this.
Yeah, and they've expanded the data set to include more options. So it's like if you're talking about a view, there's a spot for like, is it partial, all encompassing? I don't remember the exact terms, but it's like you'll just enter that one thing. It'll be just a click of the button, and then it helps to just capture the degree, the range of view, and things of those natures that, in before you just said residential view, or so.
And what does that mean, really? Residential view.
Yeah.
If you're living in a house, you walk out the front door and turn around, it's a residential view.
Yeah. I see another house.
Yeah. All right. Well, Heather, I can't thank you enough for being here today. I know Jim Morrison has an anonymous appraiser question that he wanted to ask us about, and I'm curious to see what your take on this is.
Well, before I want to thank Heather for promoting Val Expo and saving me the effort. It's August 7th through 9th. If anybody that isn't registered yet, valuationexpo.com. And Fannie and Freddie will have a room off the trade show where you can go in and try it out, give them your feedback in person. So if you're somebody that's going to be doing these forms in the future, you need to be there at Valuation Expo to check this out.
Absolutely. If you haven't signed up for Val Expo yet, do it now.
Absolutely. All right. Well, our anonymous.
Make sure you stop by and say hi to me. I'll be there.
Our anonymous appraiser question comes. I just got a call today from a client I did with a private appraisal for last week. He was upset at me for posting the value to Zillow. I was shocked that he would even ask such a question. I told him I did not. I don't use Zillow. We're not friends. His report went from my desk directly into his email, not an AMC, not a lender, and I didn't go anywhere close to my software provider. But his information value was updated to the current value. I should say that this is a divorce appraisal, and that may have something to do with it. My question is, has anyone ever heard of this happening? 30 years, and this is a first for me. Thanks.
Well, I haven't heard of it happening, but I believe Zillow works similarly to, and I could be completely wrong, but like Wikipedia, where you can update your own information. So if you are the homeowner, I believe I've seen where it's like it asks, are you the homeowner? And if I've never gone down that path, but it's very possible that if you are, you can click on that and update your value or property characteristics. I'm curious now, so I'm definitely going to go on and see how that works, but that might be
if that's a possibility, I can see if this is a contentious divorce case where maybe one party or the other went in and did that out of spite. I'm not aware of any. I'm just not aware of any software provider that does real estate appraisal stuff that would ever share that information with Zillow. But I've anonymous. I've never seen that in almost 40 years in the business. So interesting question.
Yeah.
Well, anybody who's listening, if you have seen that, let us know in the comments or reach out to us at comments@appraisalbuzz.com.
Awesome. Well, Heather, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. We're excited to see you at Val Expo. And you can rest assured that everybody from our team is going to come by and say hi and spend some time with you. But the folks that are listening, when you're at the expo, go around, visit the vendors. Heather's going to be there in person. Go say hi to her. Introduce yourself to her. That's the reason we go to conferences, right? To meet people and network and do those things. So please visit the booth and chat with Heather when you're there.
Guys, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you soon.
All right. Jim, you got anything else for us today before we run off?
Nope, that's it. Thanks.
All right. Well, for Jim Morrison and Heather Sullivan, I'm Hal Humphreys, and that is your Appraisal Buzzcast for this week.